Hello and welcome to HighCast. This episode of HighCast is recorded in the studios of Highland FM. Go to highlandfm.org.au to find out about volunteering and more. This episode is brought to you by Rad Solutions. Rad Solutions offers youth engagement and community building. Go to radsolutions.com.au. Our guest today, well, that's some quick introductions. Our guest today is Beth Macdonald, better known as Baby Mac. Beth is a blogger, social commentator, and Burrawang local. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, look, it's a long drive from Burrawang.
Oh, come on, it's not so bad. It's a long drive anywhere to Burrawang. From
actually,
Burrawang.
I noticed, well, not just from Burrawang. This morning I went from Barrel down to, where did I go? Moss Vale.
Yep.
And I allocated half an hour. And it took almost half an hour to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we're pretty consistent. Burrawang's pretty much half an hour from everywhere.
That should be the slogan for
half
Burrawang.
An hour from anywhere that you need to be. Except Robbo isn't as far, but that's only 10 minutes. But yeah,
Robbo, Burrawang. What's the slang?
Well, Burrawang can be known as the Wang.
I was hoping we were going to go there.
I don't know how well that sits with locals. We've got, it's called Robbo for Robertson. We've got Mossy for all the Vegas.
No, really?
Yeah, Las Vegas.
No, I'd never heard that one. That's because I'm not a local.
No,
see?
Well, either am I, but this is just, and then Bundy for Bundanoon.
I had heard that, yeah.
Yeah, Barrel's just Barrel. Mittagong, the gong. I don't know. I think that's
no. You can't do the gong.
You can't take that. So that's all we've got. Yeah.
Okay. And what's Burrawang's your favourite? You done?
Yeah, love Burrawang. Well, it's a pretty special place. Have you been?
Yeah,
there?
I've been there a couple of times.
Yeah.
I was hoping that you would say that. What?
Yeah.
Because it is, right?
It is. Yeah.
It's kind of. I feel like I'm in The Hobbit.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It is such a pretty place, and I think that that Burrawang it's special in like the people that end up there get. I feel like Burrawang chooses the people that are going to live in it rather than the other way around.
Okay, go on.
I don't know. It's a special place. It's filled with really eclectic mixture of people. So you've got your original farmers, people that have lived there, their families have lived there for generations. Then you've got blow-ins like myself, which, we've only been there. We moved there 8 years ago from Sydney. You've got retirees. It seems to be, it's got a pretty high socio-economic background. It's like it's a bit more of a expensive place to live, I guess. So when we first moved, there were no young families in not that many
But
families.
there's a school there.
There's a school, yeah.
The school had no... Well.
It did. Of course it did. But I mean, like, in terms of living in the town, it was more retirees that were living there and fancy pants Sydney people that had bought all these houses, and they were all, there's lots of gravel driveways in Burrawang.
So what does that mean?
Well, it just means there's gravel driveways. It's like there's hedges and gravel driveways.
Yeah, okay. The hedges I can understand.
Yeah, but then there's an amazing group of other people that have lived there their whole life that, it's not any different. It's just what they do. And it's so beautiful in the rolling hills of potatoes and dairy farms and like it's absolutely stunning, but it is a little bit like a touch of the Vicar of Dibley.
I said The Hobbit, but more Vicar of Dibley.
Did you ever watch the Vicar of Dibley?
I think wasn't really my demographic. Yeah.
Well, clearly it's not mine either, but I love it. So yeah, it's a very special place, and I love it. We fell in love with it. I'd never been to Burrawang before we
really
moved down here. No, we did a 2 hour radius outside of Sydney when we decided that we wanted to move, and I didn't want to go to the Blue Mountains because of the Great Western Highway. I'm not a Central Coast person, so it was sort of South Coast or Barrel. My knowledge of the Southern Highlands was like old people living in Barrel, puffer jackets and
what does my wife calls them? Horse jackets.
Yeah, a lot of quilted vests and stuff. And so we then saw our house online and we came down to Burrawang. We were just like, oh man, just have to have one beer at the back of the pub and sold. So it's beautiful. We absolutely love it. I don't think we'd live anywhere else.
I feel like the Burrawang "It chooses you"
Yes.
is the slogan.
Yeah, it does. Some people are there their whole lives. Sometimes it's just a couple of years. It's for a reason or a season. It's just like, yeah, you end up there, and it's not just a place to live. It's more than that. I don't know. It teaches you something, or I don't know.
So what have you learnt?
Well, it completely changed our lives. We were living in inner city terrace in Camperdown, and had 2 kids, and were on the rat race of going through having kids in daycare and working full time, and just living that life, which was very stressful. And now we have a completely different. It's changed our lives immeasurably. We now live in a beautiful part of the world. We live in a house that we would never have been able to afford in Sydney. It's like we've travelled back in time. It's like a little touch of the childhood that me and my husband had when we were growing up. Our kids can ride their bikes to school. They can walk home. They can walk home from school, end up going into someone's house for a glass of cordial or an ice block. This stuff doesn't happen anymore, really, in Sydney. Maybe it does. I don't know. But I feel like we've given them the kind of childhood that we had, and that will make them to be the people that they are. We have dinner every night together as a family, and it's just
So do you think that it's only because of the place that you're doing that?
No, I think that probably would have happened anywhere.
Yeah.
Really, I can't put that all on Burrawang's shoulders, but
pretty special if you could.
Yeah. I think it's definitely, of all the villages in the Highlands, that it has this a really strong. Bundanoon's a little bit like that too, in that they have these this great sense of community where everyone pulls together for events. So in Burrawang, there's this whole year that can be seen that's plotted out with various events that happen through the year. So you've got last weekend we had our Easter market, so that kind of starts off the village calendar year, where we do the markets, which is huge. You've got 15,000 people that come in.
That's a significant event. I've always I've only been there once, but I've driven past it a couple of times now. And the logistics of it.
Yeah, it's huge.
It'd be like planning the Easter show kind of thing.
Yeah. It's massive, and it's all on the shoulders of people that live in the village.
Wow, okay.
And, everyone just gets stuck in and, really works hard. And it's an amazing event that showcases everything, the best bits of Burrawang, because it's beautiful. It's a fundraiser for my 2 of my kids go to the school. It's a great fundraiser for our tiny school.
Okay, yep.
And just an amazing sense of, going to there's nothing better than that first schooner at the pub after you finish dragging the bins in from up the street, and everything goes back to normal, and you go back into the pub and have a drink, and it's everyone from the butcher who's sold, 1,000, roast beef rolls and 1,000 meat pies, and he's stuffed, and then you've got the potato farmers that have sold their stuff, and local artists, and everyone that's just had a good time. Kids who've had their face painted. It's just like a great event. And then in June we have the June long weekend. So we've got the Burrawang Ball, happens on the Saturday night. It's our annual ball. And then on the Sunday night we have the firecrackers at the pub. So that's like old school cracker night that used to happen when we were kids. That happens.
Yeah, that's something
Sunday
that disappeared, didn't it?
Yeah, I think health and safety issues particularly, but it's fantastic. We have a great night there. Christmas Eve we have at the pub. It's also surrounded by the pub a little bit, and
but
it's okay.
It's not about what is served in the pub. It's about the place.
That's right. It's like in any of those European towns where there's a town centre, square where people will meet. I guess the pub is that.
Yeah.
For Burrawang. So. Yes, I can't even remember your question. It was something about seasons and events. Yeah,
it's not really the point. It sounds like community is really important to you.
Very much, yeah. And that I love that my kids know that you just got to get stuck in, and you've got to help people when there's an event on. If there's something on in the hall, the trivia night, you got to go and you got to help and set up the chairs, and you got to pack up, and you've got to help out. That's part of going to a small school too. So the primary school is one of the small schools, which there are a few in the Highlands. You've got Exeter and Avoca and Kangaloo. They're like tiny. So there's 30 kids at Burrawang this year from kindergarten to year 6. And they learn that you play up regardless of your age. If you're in year 6, you still have to hang out with the kindergarten kids, and that's something that wouldn't necessarily happen if you were, at a bigger primary school where there's hundreds of kids.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? And I often wonder what I was saying off air that I've been here for almost 2 years, and my oldest son went to school down here.
Yep.
And I often wonder what his adventure would have been like if we'd stayed in Sydney.
Yeah.
And what his sense of community would be. And we're in Barrel. It's the suburbs just located an hour and a half out of the city.
Yep.
But it has a feeling of there's something more.
Yeah.
And I wonder what my kids would have grown up in if we hadn't moved.
Yeah, I know. I often think about that. Our kids would have gone to school in Glebe or Forest Lodge is where they were going to go to school. I mean,
that would be completely different.
Completely different.
Yeah.
They would have a much broader, I suppose they would have a broader knowledge of different backgrounds. It's a pretty clean-cut slice of life that you get in the Southern Highlands, you know, and it's pretty privileged and it's pretty white and it's all those things. But, they've gotten other things, so it's like pros and cons, right?
Yeah, it is hard to find that balance, and there are difficult things about living in the Highlands. So, for example, just the train getting back to the city is atrocious. So our ability to commute to major economic hubs is terrible.
Yes.
Our access to high-speed internet is not so fantastic. So we have to make some sacrifices along the way, and I'm sure you and your family have noticed those as well. But what I'm hearing is the pros definitely outweigh the cons.
Absolutely, yeah. We are very fortunate. Both my husband and I work from home, so we don't have to do commuting. It would be a different situation altogether if we had to. One of us, we just don't go to Sydney. We just avoid going to Sydney at all costs. Yeah. If we have to fly for work, we usually fly from Canberra. We just choose
that's
to go
a good
down
move.
that way. And we've got the NBN out of Burrawang. So
no, really? Yeah. To the home or to the node?
What, to the home?
No, really?
Yeah, we got high speed NBN. Like, my husband does video editing.
Oh my God.
We've got like 40 upload, 20 download. Like, we got goods. We both work online and he uses big video files and I do big sound. We're good. We are good to go in Burrawang.
Wow. Well, you shouldn't have advertised it. You're gonna property prices in Burrawang.
Yeah. Well, they've already gone through the roof.
I think you got to get into real estate now. Yeah. So tell me about Baby Mac. Like,
yes.
How does one begin that adventure? Well,
so I've been blogging for 12 years in July coming up.
So you've been here 8, so you started blogging before you moved?
Yes. Yep. So I set up my blog as a way to keep in contact with my 2 sisters. There was no Facebook. Can you imagine?
What are we?
Facebook didn't exist. So it was 2006.
So let's go back to 2006.
2006.
What, MySpace was around?
Yeah, MySpace.
What else? So AOL was still a thing, was it?
Yeah, Instant Messenger was a go.
Oh, yes. Okay, cool.
I still have my Hotmail account. I've still got my Hotmail account. I still use it. I can't give it up because I got it in 1995, and I'm just like, I still give out my Hotmail. It's pretty embarrassing, but
it's an email address, right? What's email? It's like a mailbox. Who cares?
Yeah, I know. But when you say Hotmail,
please tell me it's a really embarrassing.
It's sort of Red Boots Beth. Like, it's not cool. There is nothing cool when you're meant to be a mother of 3 in your 40s now, and you've got to turn around and say, my email address is Red Boots Beth.
Yeah, but what's age?
Yes,
right?
exactly. It's exactly right.
Yeah.
So 2006, I was pregnant with my first daughter, Daisy, and I wanted to. My sisters lived in London and Melbourne, and I have always been an oversharer, and I wanted to be able to keep them up to date with the pregnancy. So my husband Rob actually, and I read a lot, like at the time, America. So America's probably about 5 years ahead of where Australia is.
I think you're being generous. I thought it would have been bigger, but let's not debate that.
Yeah. What, in terms of their advance, in that space? Yeah, maybe it is. At the time, they were,
yes,
like in terms of like blogs that I were reading blogs. They were around, and so I set up a blog and started writing and documenting. It's, you know, a blog is just I mean, I'm sure your listeners know what a blog is. Maybe not. It's just it's a website where it's basically like a journal or a diary, and you're writing entries. So
yeah, I feel like if you're accessing this on the web, you're going to go what a blog is.
But I tell you, I did a thing the other week, and I was asked, "What's a blog?" It's like, okay. So anyway, set that up, and then Facebook came around probably about a year later, and then social media from then has like just gone through the roof. So so I just started blogging about, writing about you know, having a new baby and that, and then people started reading it. Somehow you find somewhere, you go down a rabbit hole, and you end up reading this person's life. And I mean, the way I write now compared to what I used to write about then is in a much different style. It was very, you know, you didn't think anyone was reading it, so it was quite personal, and, you know, you just like,
that's probably why you got the followers, though.
Yeah, it was someone who's sharing your life. You just like, you know, and they're doing it consistently, so you read it, and then you know, start to know this person and how's things going with your husband, and then we're thinking about having another baby, and now I've had that baby.
So you posted stuff like that on your...
Oh God, I've written about everything. Like,
wow,
all
okay.
of the things. All of the things.
So do you wonder at all about why people started to find you interesting?
I'm a very interesting person. No.
Well, I'm sure, but like 14,000 people can't be wrong, right?
No, it's just essentially what all humans want to do, and it's connect with other people through. That's
what I was hoping
story.
You would say. Yeah.
So it's no different to meeting someone. And I mean, like I said at the start, I've always been an oversharer. If you were to hang out at school pickup with me, I would be telling you the same conversations that I'm writing in a blog post.
Yeah.
Because the one thing I know from writing for 12 years online about family and being a female and motherhood and relationships and marriage and all that stuff is that you are never alone. It's like every time I write something, someone will go, "Oh my God, me too." So everyone's doing the same thing, feeling the same frustrations, sharing the same joy. It's just a way of expressing that and connecting. And like, it's amazing. I still find it amazing that my little website where I tap out some ideas is a source of inspiration. It's changed people's lives. Some people have had, decided to have extra children when we decided to have our third, and they've watched me do it and, you know, say, "Oh, yeah, we've decided to do it too." And, you know, like, there have been people that have been reading my blog from the very beginning. That's 12 years. They are invested in our life. They know who we are. You know, at the market last weekend, I had so many people who came to visit, and they want to say hi. They feel like they know you, and they do know you because I've been opening up our lives to them for that time.
Wow. Any absolute favourite moments
on the blog? Well, I think definitely when we decided to move, my struggle after we'd had our second daughter and we were trying to look to buy another house in Sydney, and we needed all this money, and it was just like, I think I was probably a little bit depressed at the time. And when we decided to move down here and I was writing about that, that was amazing. And I love going back and reading those blog posts and, like, you know, written this thing, what if, and like all these things. And then you go, man, we did it. Like, we took the plunge and we did it, and we didn't know anyone when we moved down here. And now look at us. So I love reading back on those. You read
your own ones back, yeah?
Occasionally, if I, end up down a rabbit hole.
I can't listen to myself.
No, I know. But sometimes I read it, I'm like,
but if it's writing,
it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good post. I love writing about that. I love reading about, obviously when the kids were little, and when we decided to have our third child, Maggie, and having when I was pregnant with her, I wrote a series of posts called the Prego Files, which were very funny. And
you do say so yourself.
Yeah, they were funny. And then, reading back on, so there's lots of different things. I mean, the blog that I have, the version of Baby Mac now is a very different version to what it was 12 years ago. It's certainly found its feet in terms of niche of, I trot out a lot of entertaining and cooking because I love doing that, and living in the Highlands lends itself with great producers and food around us. So yeah, I love doing that. I've held some events. It's taken me to places that I would never have believed.
Do you think it's because you're sharing and being genuine?
Of course. Essentially, the success of its longevity is that I have been consistently open, and when people meet me, they go, "Oh, you're exactly like how I imagined you to be," and I'm like, "Well, duh! Like, I'm not gonna. It'd be exhausting to try and."
Yeah, but it sounds so simple. But I reckon that's why people like yourself are so popular, or alternatively, why other people are unsuccessful is because genuineness is really difficult, and it's really hard to find.
Yeah.
There's heaps of people that you meet that you just get the facade.
Yeah.
And they're being the people that they think you want them to be.
Mm-hmm.
So people, I think, are crying out for something genuine, especially in this day and age when we're surrounded by so much social media and so much negative news.
Yep.
Someone who's genuine and passionate is hard to find.
Yeah. And I've always tried. That's all. I always just try. And our
Was
life
it conscious?
is pretty. No, it's just it just happens.
Okay.
Just what it is what it is. And I think that you just have to be honest, and you have to be consistent with it. And I've just I love doing it. It's part I can't imagine not. I mean, it's exhausting, and it takes up a whole lot more. It's actually it's my job. It's a full-time job. It's how I make all my money. It's how we support, it's how I contribute to the family. So it's a family business in people having a mixed business. It's just like that. But
it's I think why I find it particularly interesting is that it's a mixed business that it's relatively new. You don't go back 20 years ago and find people who are making their living off telling their story.
No,
essentially,
no.
That was, you might have had journalists who might have written memoirs or whatever it might be, but just your average person telling their story and making money of it. It's a really new phenomenon.
Yeah, and it was a case of timing. I nailed the timing with it when blogging really took off around 2011. Is when blogging in Australia really took off and started, and then from there became commercial probably 6 years ago. So what are we looking, 12, 13, something like that.
Yeah, okay.
That's when people were starting to see that there was commercial success in it. And I have just ridden the wave of that, and it has been a case of timing, but it's also a lot of paddling and a lot of staying out the back and riding the waves and working out which set you're going to take in and what you're not, and trying to remain keep your integrity intact, and think about what your readers want to listen, and not take any commercial thing that you can just because it's going to pay you. It's interesting.
So people see your Facebook page or your web page or listen to your blog. What don't they see? Or what don't they hear? Not saying that you're
me screaming at my children. No, there's not. Not much that they don't see, really. I mean, there are things. There's a lot of private stuff now that my kids are older. My eldest daughter, who was the baby, is now heading into high school.
Yeah,
and,
okay. Much different conversations, I imagine. Much different.
Yeah. I mean, no one wants, she doesn't want me talking about the issues that she's got. And, I always try and use something that's happened in our life as a trigger point to a discussion, to connect with people and to open up a discussion around something.
Has it filtered into your train of thought, when you're
That'll
having
a
Yeah. Really? Yeah. Okay. So how do you is your blogging separate from your personal life, or are they just completely intertwined?
They're just intertwined.
Wow.
There's just not much, people. I mean, I don't put everything on the blog.
No, I'm not saying that you do, but once it starts entering your train of thought,
it's completely intertwined. It's who I am, and I don't know how long this is going to last for. This is the other thing. I don't know how. I don't know how much longer people are going to want to read this stuff for. I don't know how long blogging's going to be around. It's it's a strange thing, but it's also It's been documented. There's a copy of my blog that's like in the National Library
Really?
of Australia as a slice of life.
How cool is that?
That's great. Like,
that is really special.
there's a slice of Australian life from I don't even know how much they've taken or whether it still gets fed in there or whatever. But when that came through, I was like, that's cool.
Yeah.
That counts for something.
Yeah, if someone looking through the National Archives in 100 years' time or whatever.
Oh, look at this woman living in the Southern Highlands when it was living in the country, and it'll be like a suburb of Sydney, right?
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think it's this is a really interesting moment in time, not for the entire world, but particularly for the Highlands. Like it's a time when the country here is meeting the city.
Yes.
It's a time when traditional employment is being blurred.
Mm-hmm.
It's a time where people are kind of having to make their own way in the world and are trying to figure it out, like you have obviously done.
Yeah.
So it's a really, like, your blog is not just a capture of what you're doing, but it's a real sign of the times.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. And I mean, I just don't know how long it will be around for. So until then,
what's
I'll
the
just keep
future
writing
then?
Who knows? Like, I just don't know. And I have never made plans. If I had said to myself, okay, so my 5-year plan is that I'm going to get this many.
Do you have
reads.
a 5-year plan?
No, I've never had plans. I don't.
Really?
I can't do plans. I just can't, because anything can.
So you don't
happen.
look at metrics and numbers and go,
obviously, I have to do that to be commercially successful. You have to prove your numbers, and you have to keep your numbers at a certain level, and you have to be able to show your ROI for people that are giving you good money to do stuff. So it's a proper business, of course, but I just try not to make too many plans. I mean, 18 months ago, who would have known that everyone spends their life looking at Instagram stories? I mean, like, that's where everyone is at the moment.
Yeah,
and
where will it go next?
Yeah, you just don't know. Snapchat was around for a bit. That's not there. There'll be something else. So you just got to kind of keep adapting and changing as the landscape changes.
But that's almost like a message for life. Like adapt and change. And it's part of I try to make this podcast about the Highlands.
Yep.
And it is kind of a message for the Highlands. Like, adapt and change, everybody. What we were talking before we went to air about, being local versus not being local.
Yep.
And those times are going to change. There's going to be significantly more people coming here, like you and I have done from Sydney, and the old identities are going to be blurred.
They are, but I think it's really important that we respect where we've come into, and that it's a different place. It's not Sydney. It's not Surrey Hills. The Highlands has changed so much in the 8 years that we have been here, in terms of food and coffee shops and like amazing shops. Like, shopping retail has boomed. Like,
really? Okay.
Yeah, there was no.
That's funny, because
great things.
Traditional high streets everywhere else are in decline. People going into stores are in decline, but in the Highlands, retail is on the up.
It's amazing. Yeah. I mean, Mossvale was a shithole when we moved here. Excuse the language. But look at it now. Like, opportunities galore, as the signs say.
Yeah.
And the real estate has gone through the. I mean, it's amazing what it has available. I mean, we've got like a brewing house, some amazing top shelf retail and restaurants and food and markets. Like, it's amazing, and we're lucky to be here. So I always, and I think Burrawang has given me that sense of having respect for the people that have lived here their whole lives and how things are done. You can't come in and change things, even though, and I did, I'm sure, when we moved to Burrawang, who's this blow-in? What's a blog? What's she doing? And now, I mean, the butcher's on Instagram, and he does, like...
I had John Major on the show it was the last episode.
Yeah.
He's adapting and evolving with the times.
But he didn't know what any of that was before we came to town.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we brought the technology with us and we've been the saviours, but it's definitely changing all the time. But it's really important to remember who's been here before and how things are done, and just let people just take a bit of a back seat and slowly edge in. Well, what about this or what about that? And change things, but just don't rush, because you can't rush these things. You've got to have respect for things.
I often think like, it's a difficult journey to tread that line between being respectful to the past, but then acknowledging that times are changing and moving forward.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is that you're doing that. You're showing people in the Highlands that you can run a successful business from your home on your own terms.
Yep.
And be genuine, have integrity, and have fun while you're doing it.
Yeah.
Like that's everyone's dream, right?
I know. I don't know. I'm so lucky. So lucky. I get it completely. And I just like, it's easy for me to say, yeah, come to the Highlands and live this amazing life. Like my husband and I both work from home. We've got our kids. We live in a great house. Like we are so lucky. We are just so lucky. So I never take that for granted.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's just not. We're just we're lucky.
So one of the things I also like to talk about here is you might have seen that in the last couple of months it's been released that the unemployment rate in the Highlands for young people is about 30%.
Yeah.
And so what can we do to, like, you're a successful person. What can we do to say to young people, you know what? Look, there's other things that you can do with your lives. You don't have to be a traditional, you don't have to work in traditional employment.
Yeah.
How do we help them?
I don't know. I mean, look, it's, I did hear that and I haven't really done much research into it, but it's scary. Like you want kids to be able to have opportunities and, and do all the things that we do. I guess there is this thing that when you get through high school that you then piss off to wherever you're going to go. I don't know.
Why would you?
Well, because you've done your growing up here, and then you want to taste the rest of the world.
Everyone does that, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, but there are amazing opportunities here in terms of hospitality and all that. But you can think outside the box, and you with technology, and you don't have to be in an office.
Yeah, okay.
Well, going to Sydney.
I'll make it more personal. Like, what are you doing with your daughters to shape them for the future, to make them?
Oh, Jesus!
Didn't expect that question.
Exploiting them on social media.
Yeah, Beth's like, where's the direction of this podcast going?
Hang on, things just took a bit of a turn. I don't know. I would encourage them always to think out, like we don't have traditional jobs, and that you can do whatever you want to do and be creative. And, we really just haven't gotten to that stage of
but you must be
thinking. Of course.
You must be thinking about it.
Yeah, I guess.
And trying to shape their behaviours and their attitudes and...
Yeah. I mean, I'm terrified of having been online so much myself. I'm overly cautious about the online world for my own children, which is interesting.
Okay, tell me more about that. What are you terrified of?
Well, just the way that society has changed. Yeah. The way that we communicate with each other online rather than in person, and all of that stuff. So, and treading carefully when they do dip their toes into social media for the first time, and all the mistakes that I've made and all the lessons that I have learned about human nature and people. I mean, people can be revolting.
I was going to say, have you experienced bullying and harassment online?
Just awful things. But it's just entertainment for people, and people, just being cautious of the words that you use, and that you can't read tone and you can't read sarcasm when you, so teaching them, I mean, Rob and I are really strong in teaching them those kind of lessons, and that being online is such a small part of life, and that you just turn your phone off or turn your computer off and go outside and be around people and actually talk and converse and be humans. That's just missing so much. We've all I think the way our brains are wired are completely different to how they were when we were kids. And do
you think so that evolution is real? Okay, wow.
I do. I think, I mean, I can't, in the 12 years I've been doing this, I think social media has made our brains I can't read books. It's like you've got tabs open on your computer all the time now, or you've got your scrolling that you do from this social media to the next thing to check your email. You've got these like loops that you do, and I just think that our brains work differently now.
Wow, okay.
Kids don't call each other up on the phone. No one speaks on the phone anymore. They only text and send messages and like all that stuff.
Yeah, that really annoys me. I shouldn't sound like an old fogey. But I like to talk to people.
I know, so do I.
It's really strange.
You've got to have those awkward conversations when you're like calling up a girl in her house. You got to.
Yeah,
no one does that
yeah.
anymore,
No one's going to look
right?
through the
No
phone
one's gonna
book
look
to
through
try
the
and find the
phone.
number.
Yeah, call, hi, Mr. Macdonald. It's Dave here. Is Beth there? No one does that anymore. It's like a text, like a message through Snapchat or
I hadn't
something.
even thought about this sort of stuff. My boys are 6 and 3.
Okay, right.
So we haven't.
Yeah.
We're not quite
I
there.
know. Well,
Just
we're at 11, 9 and 3, about to be 3. So
Yeah.
I've got the like high school to preschool.
wow. That is a broad spectrum.
Yeah, it is. So I think that I think definitely that society is a different place to where it was, and that social media has a lot to do with that, and that it's important that you keep your kids up to date. They're all digital natives. They're like, we've learnt it as we've gone, and it's just who they are and part of their life from when they. I mean, you can see my 2-year-old like can do anything around an iPad, and that's just what she's grown up knowing. And we have to. I think it would be silly to keep your head in your sand about stuff, and that we will always be. Rob and I are always early adopters of any new technology in terms of social media.
I'm a bit of a lagger myself.
Yeah, and so long as you just know what's going on, and you know what Snapchat is about, and you know what games they're playing, and what the messaging things are, and you've got to be aware of all that stuff.
I've been a lagger intentionally.
Yep.
Because I've tried to maintain the human connections.
Yep.
I've always thought it's really important to have eye-to-eye contact and have human conversations.
Yep.
And I think I was talking to John about this, is that actually might be making a comeback.
Yes.
That
Everything
people
old's new again, huh?
Yeah, people are realising that you can't, like, whilst technology is awesome, is that it can't be everything.
No.
And
absolutely.
there will probably be chances in the future to make money or, business opportunities off, redefining human connection.
Yeah.
And almost selling human connection, because it will disappear in a lot of aspects.
Yeah.
So it'll be very interesting over the next 5-10 years to see, new opportunities play out around, just being human.
Yeah, I know. Who knows what it's going to bring? It's interesting how, kids, what they're learning at school and how they learn at school now is so different to what we learnt, and it's exciting. There's so much opportunity. You can be anyone or anything you want to be, and it doesn't matter about where you live. So the Highlands is no...
Yeah, well, that's what surprised me about this whole 30% unemployment rate. I'm like, given the economic affluence of this area, their access to, even if I shouldn't say even if, but there's really great private schools, but even the public schools have fantastic reputations.
They're amazing.
So we've got really highly educated people going through the systems in the Highlands, and yet they come out on the other side and 1 of 3 of them can't get a job. It really surprised me.
Yeah.
And so I started to wonder, well, what's missing? What opportunities are they not getting? Is it just because the Highlands is 20 years behind the rest of the world? What is it?
I think it might be that there's just limited opportunity in terms of, like, we're just catching up with things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm an optimist. I think, all of those things you described about what's happening in Mossvale, and I look at the professional cultures down here, the hospitals, etc. This could be the centre of something great. It could be the San Bernardino.
Absolutely.
It's the Google of...
I agree. I think there is an amazing mixture of people, and more people moving into the area every year of interesting... I mean, particularly in my age group, like there's some, like, the women... that there's a Southern Highlands women's business group that's like this amazing connection of network of women that are so smart, that are all living down here. Like, it's amazing. It's great to be a part of. I feel very excited to be one little bit of that whole thing.
Have you ever considered running for public office?
No.
Has anyone ever asked you?
No.
Would you run for public office?
No. I don't know. I think my husband will be better at it than I am. I couldn't deal with all the... I don't have the patience for... I just, like, I'm someone that likes to do things quickly, and, like, that's why blogging is always a great platform, because you can have an idea, or you can share it, and then you just get it out, and then you have instant approval of what or not, or exactly what everyone thinks about it straight away, and you go, okay, right. Whereas, that's when you're working commercially with a client, you've got to, pitch an idea, and then there's drafts, and there's coming back and forth, and then you've got to see how it goes with the public. And, so I don't have the patience for waiting.
But perhaps having someone who wants immediate action might be a good thing for a place like the Highlands.
True. Right. Okay.
And if you there is I don't have to beat around the bush on this one. There is a distinct lack of representation on our council.
Yep.
At present, it is all gentlemen.
Yep.
And so there hopefully would be opportunities for women to...
Yeah, it wouldn't be frustrating at all trying to get in there, ruffle some feathers.
Well,
oh, my God.
I don't know. It seemed like that's not the kind of thing
and
that
that's not a great, way to look at something, is it? It's too big a problem to try and fix to even try, but... maybe one day. And I don't have a 3-year-old.
I'm not suggesting that it's a problem, but, when there are people who are doing great things in the Highlands, having their opinions and their skills and expertise recognised in places that are for the greater public good,
yep.
Well, that's going to benefit all of us, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely.
So no run in the near future?
Not when I have a 3-year-old. No.
Really?
Yeah.
So when's you got a 3-year-old?
Yep.
What's happening next?
Well, we're just going to get through till school, and like I said, I just don't have any plans because I don't know what's going to happen. I can't set goals. I can't do.
But surely, like with your mortgage and all that sort of stuff, maybe you're fortunate enough to not have a mortgage. But don't you got to have something for that security, don't you?
Well, it is. It's a scary thing of freelance work. And it's the same as my husband. We have these highs where there's a lot of work and there's a lot of money, and then there's these drought periods, which are terrifying. So I don't know. I just think I will, continue to keep writing, keep maintaining the audience that I have, keep trying to come up with creative ways to, get brand messages across whenever I can and partner with brands. I mean, it's pretty cool to be able to pitch an idea to a brand like Olympus or Toyota or something and say, I've got this idea of doing this, what do you reckon? And them going, okay, maybe, and them trusting you with it and then pulling it off. It's cool. It's really
So sorry to interrupt, how does one maintain integrity when dealing with corporate giants?
It's, I suppose, being able to, you've just got to keep your voice, not sell out and say, oh, I feel okay with you doing this and taking over this. And it's being firm and strong and knowing who your audience are and is, and keeping, whenever I try and do a job for a client, I think there still has to be something in it for the reader that they're, it can't just be, look at this product.
So content is still king?
Absolutely. And there still has to be something in it for a reader.
Yeah, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I used to work in advertising. Oh, yeah. And some of the things would just drive me or disgust me, really.
Yeah.
The things that we would do for clients, and that debate between content versus capital was really prevalent all the time. And the reason why I'm asking the question is, an individual doing that, the pressure's all on you to make those decisions. So it mustn't be something that's easy. No,
it's not. It's really difficult, and you've got to create. I mean, more brands. Everyone wants video content. So you've got to keep changing your skill set of now we want to video is king, so we want you to be able to create great content. So you've just got to keep changing. It's about podcasts. Okay, so we've got to have podcasts, and we've got to all of these channels. This is what we want, and being able to go, oh God, I'll have a crack and try and do it and do something creative that your readers are still going to. It's exhausting, full on.
Yeah, when I checked out your website and I saw your disclaimer about and I was like, wow, okay, I didn't realize that you're delving into that world of corporate partnerships.
Yeah,
and it would be really hard.
Yeah, it is, because you want to be able to make some money. It costs a lot of money, let alone time, every year to just keep this business ticking over.
And it's sort of, sorry to interrupt again, but it's almost the only way to get it. Not the only way to get ahead, but you get better because of the money that they give you, and so you can produce better content for your listeners or your readers because of the money. So it's catch-22 at the same time.
That's right. That's right. So and you've got to be able to pay yourself for the time that you spend. Every day I would spend, it's like, I'd spend 4 to 6 hours every single day, maybe more, on running the blog. And it's like, it's advertising, it's editorial, it's being the photographer, it's being the accountant, it's being the creative director. And
I was asking the bits that people don't see.
All of that stuff.
That's the stuff they don't see. They see a woman leading a fantastic life in Burrawang with rolling green hills and children and whatever, but they don't see the business as usual stuff, the paying your own accounts and dealing with Toyota's highly demeaning demands. I don't mean to say demeaning, but sometimes they can be. So they don't see that. Or do you directly say, look, guys, I'm talking to Toyota today?
No, they don't see any of the pictures that come in.
And if you don't feel comfortable talking about this,
no, it's fine. And there's if readers knew how much work I turn down, if it's just like there's like 70%, 80%.
Wow, really?
Yeah, because it's just like it's not going to work, and that could be good.
See, that's integrity. That's important.
Yeah. But, I mean, I could try and do it, but then people are going to just see that bullshit a mile away and just go, I don't want to, you lose people along the way anyway, but then you always pick up new people. I always just try and think, if I'm working with I'm working at the moment closely with Woolworths, and some people don't like that because it's a big chain supermarket and they're ruining, the dairy farmers that live down the road. Like, I get this.
Yeah, I've talked about this a couple of times. In the Highlands, right? We've got, you said it yourself, access to such great produce, but you go to Woolworths or Coles or whatever, and you're buying produce from somewhere else. Yeah, it's great. It's crazy, but we can't necessarily do anything about it. Yep. But manage our own lives, and you're doing the best to manage.
Yeah, that's
your own
right.
life.
I always just think, is this something I use? Is this something I would do? Is this something I would be recommending to a mate if we were at school pickup in the playground? Yes, okay, ticks those boxes. Can I teach someone something out of getting that lesson across? So, for Woolworths, I might create a recipe, and then that's a great recipe that they can use to feed their family. It's a win-win for the person that's reading it. It's a win for the client, and it's a win for me because I've been paid to do both. Yeah. So, Olympus, I've been doing some work with. I'm actually going over for the royal wedding for Olympus.
No.
Yes, I am.
What?
I know. I pitched it to them. I came up to them. Since I was pregnant with Maggie, my third daughter, I did this series of blog posts called the Prego Files, because I was pregnant at the same time as Kate when she was pregnant with Charlotte. She had Charlotte.
I didn't even know the daughter's name, but anyway.
I'm heavily
You're right into this.
There. So everyone kind of got to me to go, Beth's a bit of an unofficial royal correspondent. Great. So when Haz and Meghan got engaged,
Haz.
Harry.
Okay, yeah.
When they got engaged, and I saw there's this huge interest from my audience. You've got huge. Some of these Instagram posts were they went straight to my number one. I'm like, wow, there is an interest here, and I have got to try and tap into it. So I said I'm going to pitch it to Olympus because I was working with them anyway, and so I just got them to pull budget out of their ass, outside of all their other marketing, with this great pitch. I'm going to go over, I'm going to do this. And they went for it. So, and then of course, all of my readers are like, this is amazing. I'm going to be going off on this adventure in May for 10 days and
adds
take
to the
them all
story.
over. It's a great story.
Yeah.
It's a great story. And there's great brand.
But I need to ask,
goodwill.
what's with the royals? Why? Do you think it's old-timey stuff, to the bygone era where you could have been a princess and all? What's what?
I don't know.
I'm clutching at straws here, but what is it?
And it's not that I'm a monarchist at all. I think that Australia shouldn't be part of the Commonwealth. I'm I'm a Republican, but there is something.
Something's fascinating, but what is it? Why?
I don't know. I think particularly with the when Netflix came out with the Crown series, that brilliant TV series.
Hang on, is this a promo?
No, no, not really.
Okay.
People would have watched The Crown.
I haven't seen it.
Fabulous. And I think that that's just also given it this, interest and that Will and Harry are they've got an amazing social media. Like if you want to watch someone on social media, the royal family are nailing it.
Really?
They are
Like
nailing
comedy nailing it, or
No, they just like talk about a brand that is nailing it in terms of
Really?
they are doing an amazing job.
oh god, I
of no
shouldn't say this,
interest.
but I couldn't be less interested.
Yeah, that's fine. That's all good. And that's why I'm going and you're not
Yeah,
going.
But that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
It's your audience who likes it, and
Yeah.
it's your
Who knows why? It's just, So
But
that's
it's still a
gonna
great
happen.
story.
It's a great story. Can't wait. Going to England without my children for 10 days.
Yeah, and to bring it back to why I want to hear stories like this, it's somebody from the Highlands who is going off on an adventure about the royal family.
Yep.
Like that's a story in itself.
Yeah.
A woman from Burrawang
Yep.
getting on a plane to do a blog about the royal wedding.
Yep.
That's incredible.
It's great.
It's a really fantastic story to tell.
Yep.
Are you going to make any recipes while you're there?
No, I won't be doing recipes when I'm there, but there'll be definitely some sort of royal cooking. There might be a lead up to it. I mean, who knows? It's so much possibility. I can't wait.
Yeah,
That's
but
the
have
thing.
you must have thought about this so far. Like,
About what I'm going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
you don't want to give away your secrets.
No, there'll be things. It's going to be a great thing. I love traveling, and I blog like consistently whenever we go on holidays, whatever. I just love being able to take people. Some mum who's up breastfeeding at 2:00 in the morning, and she's flicking through her phone, and she can read a story about whether it's that she is struggling with her marriage, or she can imagine that she's in New York or London or wherever I might be. Take them along with me. It's cool. It's fantastic. And it's just human connection, and that's what it's all about.
We'll probably end it there because you listeners won't see this, but Beth's eyes and her face light up when she's talking about those sort of things. It's really... I wish people could see the way that you're behaving right now. It's really fantastic. I'm really happy that there's people in the Highlands like yourself.
Thank you.
Is there how do people follow you and do the thing?
Yes, so my blog is called Baby Mac. If you were just to Google Baby Mac, you will find anything, but it's www.baby-mac.com. On Instagram, Baby Mac, Facebook, all of the channels. I also have a podcast called The Throne Rangers.
I know. I was like,
about the royal family.
Get another podcaster on here.
I know. And yeah, so you can find me. It's not hard. Just look up Beth Burrawang, Google anything. There is a wealth of recipes, at least. Things that people, if you're interested in cooking.
It's funny that I put out, when I first started the podcast, I put out a request. Who's some interesting people? I don't really know anybody. Your name came up, John Major.
Yeah.
Came up. There's a member from the council that I'm trying to get on if he just responds.
Yeah, right.
Because he's been a major request as well.
Yep.
So Burrawang's leading the way.
It is. It's all happening in Burrawang.
Burrawang is the place to be.
Yep.
You can find more about Burrawang and the Highlands by tuning in to HighCast on iTunes. Subscribe, follow Facebook. I'll have a website eventually one day when I get around to it. But thank you very much for listening.